So I'm the only player that shows his frustration on the court, right? That's what you want to say. I'm the only player that is showing that.
Whenever Novak Djokovic decides to grace the tennis courts with his presence, the experience is always an unforgettable one. From his legendary roars and spirited wins to his fiery and persevering personality, the current world #1 and 22-time Grand Slam champion never forgets to put on a great show for his fans every time he steps onto the court. A highly intense player whose driving force is to win almost if not all of his games, Djokovic has been on a race to the crown since he made his professional debut in 2003. Not one to be scared of confrontation, he lets the world know from time to time how much of a mental game tennis can be, and can be seen more often than not expressing just how frustrated he is when things do not go his way. So, join us as we dig up 10 moments Novak Djokovic lost his temper on the court.
I keep doing these things well. Why don't I get suspended then?
I'm saying you were close, weren't you? That's what I'm saying.
I'm close.
For most professional tennis players, tennis can be quite intense and frustrating to play. This is because it requires you to be at your best, mentally and physically, to be able to play and remain in the big leagues. And with the occasional injuries here and there, this is easier said than done. At the 2021 Australian Open quarterfinals, Novak Djokovic experienced a bit of this frustration. This was to be the Serb's 18th Grand Slam title run, and not only were things not going as smoothly as he might have envisioned, he also sustained a major injury to his abdominal oblique muscles while playing against American tennis player Taylor Fritz some days before the quarterfinals. It was a serious injury that might ordinarily have put him out of the match were it not for the fact that it was a Grand Slam and he was not about to drop out of such an important tournament. He decided to toughen it out and continue playing. As to be expected, playing with an injury proved tougher than he thought, and by the third set of the match, his frustration at his inability to make shots accurately got to him, and he took it out on his racket, smashing it repeatedly on the ground before returning to the game. Frustrations, nevertheless, his tenacity paid off and he won the match, defeating German Alexander Zverev in straight sets. The Serb's history of racket smashing did not, however, start at this match. Djokovic has quite the relationship with his rackets, and he has been seen many a time letting out his frustrations on the tennis equipment. In 2015, at the semi-finals of the US Open, Djokovic's racket had a slight taste of the tennis athlete's frustrations. The star athlete was playing against Spanish tennis player Feliciano Lopez, and the opening set went quite well for the Serbian, ending in a 6-1 victory. Feliciano, however, jumped to a 3-0 lead and held onto a 6-3 win, leveling the playing field. This did not quite sit well with Djokovic, and in frustration at losing his second set, he took off his shirt, thumping his racket on his bag as he sat down, shouting. He looked quite upset with the turn of events. The 2019 Qatar Open semi-finals was yet another time Djokovic's racket took a beating. This time he was playing against Bautista Agut, and the Spanish player was giving Djokovic a run for his money. Djokovic, in a bid to return a shot, sent the ball spinning far out of the service area during the second set of the match. Not quite happy with the play, Djokovic cracked and hit his racket repeatedly on the ground, frustrated. Unfortunately, things didn't exactly look up, and the match ended in favor of the Spanish athlete in 7-6, 6-4 sets. A year later, at the 2020 US Open, in a show of irritation after losing a point to his opponent Pablo Carreno Busta from Spain, Djokovic errantly tossed his ball backwards. Unfortunately, this time it didn't just end in a penalty and a fine. Djokovic was disqualified from participating in the US Open because, though unintentionally, the ball tossed hit the line judge in the throat, hurting her. It was clear, though, that it was an accidental toss, as he immediately ran forward asking her if she was okay. The line judge could, however, not return to the match, as she was hurt, and neither could the star player. Following the incident at the US Open, Djokovic issued a statement saying how sorry he was for the unintended harm and how he planned to convert the painful event into a lesson. One would have thought that this was the last to be seen of racket smashing incidents. Well, less than 2 weeks after, Djokovic once again blew his top halfway through the match against German tennis player Dominik Kupfer at the 2020 Italian Open quarterfinals. Djokovic lost his service point, evening the score to 3-3 in the second set, and in anger, he slammed his racket to the ground, mangling it in such a way that he was forced to get a new one to continue the match, amidst warning from the chair umpire. Post-match, he admitted that that wasn't the first racket he had broken, and probably would not be the last. "I don't want to do it, but when it comes, it happens," he said. As if to confirm what he said the previous year, at the 2021 Belgrade semifinals, Djokovic was fined a point penalty for racket abuse after he repeatedly smashed his racket on the court during the second round match of the tournament. Djokovic was playing against German tennis player Mats Morang and was trying to return a shot when the ball hit the net, instead causing him to act out in anger. In addition to his racket smashing abilities, Djokovic is well known for his confrontations with line judges and game officials. Always one to make his feelings on a subject known, Djokovic lost his cool during the second round match of the 2021 Italian Open, yelling at the chair umpire for making the match continue under the rain. "How much longer do you want to play?" he yelled angrily. The umpire stated that he wanted to assess the court, but Djokovic insisted that wasn't true, as he had asked 3 times before without any response from the umpire. Djokovic was clearly upset at having to continue playing on clay courts while wet, and the conversation evolved into a series of back and forth before the match was continued. Although he eventually had to wait 3 hours to finish the match, he emerged the winner, defeating Taylor Fritz in 6-3, 7-6, 7-5 sets. In 2022, at the Astana Open, Djokovic was playing against Daniil Medvedev when he threw his racket out into the crowd in frustration at not being able to return a serve. Surprised at where the racket landed, he laughed at himself while walking forward to retrieve it from a kid who had helped him pick it up. The chair umpire, however, did not find the incident as funny as Djokovic and gave him a warning for unsportsmanlike conduct and code violation. The star player was not having it and argued the reason for the warning. The umpire admitted that he gave the warning because he felt like he threw the racket into the crowd intentionally. Djokovic found the reason unable to hold water, demanding if every racket thrown for the first time deserved a warning, and if it wasn't unfair to warn him for this, based on the assumption that it might have been intentional. The argument resulted in a back and forth for a short while before the game resumed. Spectators are not spared either when Djokovic happens to be on a roll. He seems to be of the opinion that you cannot be allowed to sit and watch if your aim is to distract. At the Australian Open earlier this year, Djokovic could not hide his displeasure at the attitude of 3 spectators dressed in Where's Wally costumes. One of them looked to be drunk, and the trio was seen making noises and loud comments at each point during the game. Djokovic walked up to the umpire and demanded that they be removed from the Rod Laver area, as they had been provoking him and distracting him right from the first point. "He's not here to watch tennis, he just wants to get in my head," Djokovic argued, visibly upset at their behaviour. At first, the umpire was not about to do things Djokovic's way, but after a short while it was obvious to all that the viewers in question were in fact constituting a nuisance to the game, and they were eventually ejected from the arena, and the match continued. The Serbian had also displayed similar displeasure in times past. One event of note was at the BNP Paribas Open finals in 2011. It was the second set of the match. Novak Djokovic was playing the 22 Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal and seemed to be falling behind the king of clay. While returning a shot on his serve, the ball landed outside his opponent's service area, breaking his serve. He lost his cool and blew out a stream of words mostly directed at the noisy crowd, who had in excitement been making side comments and hollers. They had all come to watch the memorable match, but inadvertently seemed to be distracting one of the star players. Djokovic did not seem too happy about it, and this time it was too much. Obvious from his facial disposition. The match was a tough one and left Djokovic intermittently frustrated and accurately punctuated by his shouts. It eventually ended in favour of the Serb in a 4-6, 6-3, 5-2 win.